What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the channel. For my new viewers, I hope you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, ding, 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 and check out my content. For everybody else, welcome back. Welcome back. I appreciate you returning. I'm going to tell you a story today about the toughest Jew in the New York State prison system. That's right, the toughest Israeli Jew that you could ever meet in your life. I got to meet him in the prison system, so I'll tell you a little bit about that story. Before I get into his story, his name is Schlomo Tal. That was his name. And when I get to Rikers Island, uh, I I'm eating kosher food. I'm eating kosher meals, and someone says to me, "You ever heard of Shlomo?" So I says, "No, no, I never heard of Shlomo." They said he's the toughest Jew you'll ever meet in your life. So I said, yeah. They said, yeah, he's in the prison system. You know, the guys on Rikers Island were telling me this. A few of the guys had met him. So then I get transferred to Sing Sing from Rikers Island, and it's only a matter of time. I love the kosher food. I eat the kosher food wherever I go. Hey, you ever run into Shlomo? They say. So I said, no, but I heard about him on Rikers Island. Guy says, toughest Jew you'll ever meet in your life. I hear the officers say it too. Hey, you never ran into Shlomo in the prison system? Nope. They said, tough Jew, man, tough Jewish guy, Israeli guy, you know? And I would go from Attica and I would hear the same thing from the prisoners in Attica. I would hear the same thing from the prisoners in Sing Sing. No matter what prison I went to, they would talk about Shlomo, the toughest Jew in the prison system. And they would all say, officers and guards, he's the toughest Jew you will ever meet in your life, you know? And I finally get to Mid Orange Correctional Facility. And I'm in Mid Orange for a couple of years. And one day a guy says to me, hey, Joe, did you ever meet Shlomo? And I said, no, I've been hearing about that guy for 12 years, man. They said he's getting off the bus right now. He's coming into the prison. They said that's the toughest Jew you'll ever meet in your life. I says, I have to go meet this guy. You know what I mean? After all these years, I says, let me go meet him. So I start walking up to the draft room, which is where the new prisoners come in and drop off their property when they come in. And as I'm walking towards the draft room, I see this guy walking. He's probably in his 60s, you know, and he's a short guy, a small guy, maybe like 5'5", you know, and but he's walking and he looks like a tank. He looks like an Israeli tank, and he's in his 60s and he's carrying two draft bags that are probably 60, 70 pounds each, you know, and he's walking with them. He looks like a bulldog, you know. So I walk right up to him. I says, "Are you Shlomo?" And so he still has the Israeli accent, you know. He says, yes. And so I says, man, I've been hearing about you since the day I came into the prison system. He said, I'm the toughest Jew you'll ever meet in your life. I said, yes. I says, that's what I've heard, man. That's what I've heard. So it turns out that Shlomo moves into my housing unit. He not only moves into my housing unit, he gets put in my room. I'm in a 6-man room at the time. And so there was an empty bed in there, and he gets put in my room. And Shlomo and I would go on to become the closest of friends, you know. So before I get to a little bit about the prison system with him, I'll tell you what happened with him. Shlomo was convicted in September of 1977. So by the time I met him, he had 30 years in prison already, give or take, you know, because I met him in probably 2008, 2009, and he was convicted in 1977. So you do the math. And he had 25 to life, and his name was Schlomo Tal. You can Google his case. His case is on Google. And what he did was he was involved in a diamond heist. As usual, the media portrayed it wrong. The newspaper coverage got it wrong. They told the story that they wanted to tell. I've gotten the story many times from Shlomo himself, and so a little bit about he'll a little bit about Shlomo. Shlomo had never committed a crime in his life. Not in his life. He had never even broken the law. He was on a came over from Israel to the United States of America after he had finished his time in the Israeli army. And he used to show me some beautiful pictures of him in the army when he was over in Israel. I'll never forget a few pictures of him sitting on the tank, on one of the Israeli tanks, in tremendous physical condition. He gave me many stories about the Israeli army. And so he came over to America, and he ended up living on Long Island and working in Manhattan as a diamond cutter. He cut diamonds. And he was approached by this man who was a diamond. He would transport diamonds. He was a diamond broker, and they came up with a scam that they were going to do together. The guy was moving about $750,000 in diamonds from point A to point B, and he explained to Shlomo and Shlomo's co-defendant that if he was robbed, the diamonds would be covered by insurance. He would get the insurance money. They would still have the diamonds. They could sell the diamonds and split the money. And so that was basically the crime in a nutshell, that this was the plan. And the plan went bad because the individual that had the diamonds didn't show up with the proper amount of diamonds. And Shlomo had already went out of his way to have a buyer for the diamonds. And so money was exchanged and the proper diamonds weren't there. And a fight broke out in Shlomo's office where he cut diamonds. And he ended up hitting a man in the head with a piece of wood. He cracked him over the head, and the man died from the fracture to the skull. And Shlomo panicked and put the man under his desk, and then drove around in his car for a day and a half because he didn't know what to do. And to make a long story short, Shlomo and his co-defendant ended up getting arrested and charged with murder in the second degree. They went to trial, and they would both be sentenced in 1977 to the sentence of 25 years to life for murder in the second degree. And Shlomo would enter the prison system. And when he entered the prison system, he ended up in Sing Sing prison for a little while. And he had a wife and two children on the streets, and he felt the need to still support the wife and two children. And so what he did was he saw that many guys were making money in the prison system selling drugs. And so this was completely out of Shlomo's nature. He had never done anything like this before. Actually, the crime over the diamonds was really the first time he had committed a crime. But now he's in prison serving 25 to life. And he says, I need to take care of my wife and children because they were young children, and his wife wasn't working, and it didn't work. And was an Israeli woman who didn't speak good English and didn't know how to go out into the world and work here in America. So Shlomo started selling drugs inside of the prison. And he was a real businessman, and he was selling these drugs with an iron fist. And a lot of the other population that were involved in the drug dealing didn't like the fact that Shlomo was dealing drugs, especially some of the Muslim population, who were, unfortunately, they were also involved in some of the drug dealing. And so they decided that they were going to kill Shlomo. And they knew he was a dangerous guy because he had already hurt some people in prison. He had stood up for himself many times. They knew he wasn't a guy that you can play with. Shlomo was well trained from the Israeli army. He was extremely tough. One of the toughest men you'll ever meet in your life. Never mind one of the toughest Jews you'll ever meet in your life. One of the toughest men you'll ever meet in your life. And two guys ran into Shlomo's cell while he was sitting on the toilet. And they had ice picks, and they started stabbing Shlomo as he was sitting on the toilet. I saw all the wounds in Shlomo's forearms, in his stomach, in his forearms from trying to be defensive. And he was stabbed about 17 times with these ice picks throughout his body. And he ended up wrestling one of the guys down and taking the ice pick from him. And he stabbed up one. One of them ran out of the cell when Shlomo started to get composure and control. And Shlomo stabbed up one of the other guys really bad. I don't remember if that guy died or not, to be honest, but Shlomo stabbed him up real bad. And he was then taken to solitary confinement, of course, and he did several years in solitary confinement. And then he would get out and continue serving his time in the New York prison system, where he had a tremendous reputation of being a guy not to f with, and so he was doing his time, and I would meet him as I said after he had 30 years in, and we became bunkies. We became roommates in Mid Orange Correctional Facility. And the first thing he did when we met one another is he said to me, "Who's the rabbi? Who's the rabbi here?" And I says, "Rabbi so and so. Take me to his office." And he went up to the office of the rabbi and he started talking to him in Hebrew. I don't understand what he was saying. And the rabbi shaking his head, yes, yes, yes. One of the Orthodox rabbis with the long beard and the curls and the black hat. And Shlomo basically told him, "Now that I'm here, we're going to start making money." He said, "You have the Catholics selling things as fundraisers inside of the prisons. You have the Muslims, they're selling Muslim oils and incense and things to make money inside of the prison. Well, we're going to make money too." He tells the rabbi, "You're going to go into Brooklyn. You're going to go see this guy that I know that owns a bakery. You're going to bring all the bakery goods inside of the prison. We'll get the approval. We'll get the approval from the administration, and we're going to start selling cakes to the prison population." And he would bring in all these Danishes and all these cakes and all these latkes and all these different Jewish pastries and they were a massive hit. They were a massive hit. Guys were lining up in the prison to buy them, filling out disbursement forms, so that they could take money from their prison account and buy these cakes. And the next thing you know, Shlomo and the rabbi are bringing in thousands of dollars a week. You know what I mean? And Shlomo would do this in any prison he went to. He would take over the prison in any prison he went to. And that continued for a while. Shlomo was good. He was an extremely, extremely inventive guy. I remember we were allowed to have Walkmans in there. And I just got, that in the old days they didn't have the CD players in prison. You still don't think you could have CDs. We were allowed to have the cassette tapes, the radios with the cassette tapes and the headphones. And I get this new radio, and I was waiting for it for a couple of weeks. I was glad to have my new little radio, and I'm going out to the yard to play handball. So Shlomo said, "Let me use the radio while you're gone." No problem. You know what I mean? And I go out to play handball, and when I come back in, he's got the Walkman opened up. He took the entire thing apart, and it's on his bed. It's in 30, 40 pieces. I said, he got the circuit board out. I said, "What, Shlomo, what are you doing?" He says, "It doesn't sound good. I'm going to fix it. It doesn't sound good." I said, and he put it back together perfect, absolutely perfect. And it sounded much better than it did. He knew how to mess with stuff. He liked to cook. He liked to make cakes, and sometimes he would make 6, 7 cakes in a row. So we needed a whisk. You know what I mean? We really needed a blender to do well, you don't have a blender in prison. So what he did was he took the fan. You're allowed to have a fan. He took the fan and he took the blade off of the fan. And then he took a hanger and he made a whisk out of the hanger. He cut the hanger and he folded it and then tied it with some dental floss and took another hanger and he made a nice whisk out of 2 hangers. And then he attached it to the fan to where the fan blades would be, because he removed them, attached it to the fan, and he turned it on, and there's the whisk spinning, and he would whisk his cakes like that. He was just extremely, extremely inventive, and a very unique guy. I used to sit and talk with him all the time, day and night. We would sit up till 2 in the morning. He said if he ever got out of prison, he had a dream of making dome type homes. He says in some other countries, they use this style of the home that is a dome shape, round, and he believed it would be a hit, and because it was good for hurricanes and windstorms, there wasn't whatever. He had this dream, and he would do the architectural work. He would draw them, and it was very beautiful, very unique work. He always told me that he didn't mean for that diamond heist to end in the murder of someone, in the killing of someone. He expressed that to me many times, that he was very remorseful about it. That wasn't his intention. His intention was to make some money. And Shlomo explained something to me one time. He said, and it made a lot of sense. he said to me, they're never going to let me go. He says, so why would the prison system, why would the criminal justice system let you go? Meaning me. He said, you've been in trouble a ton of times in your life. He says, you've been in and out of hospitals, in and out of jails, in and out of detention centers. He said, your murder was pretty brutal. He says, and, with an extensive criminal history. He said, yet they give you 12 and a half to 25 years. He says, and me, a man who was never in trouble a day in his life, out of the Israeli army, came here and ended up killing this guy. He says, on accident. It wasn't intentional. He said, yet they give me 25 to life. He says, and they'll never let me go. He said, there's two reasons for that. He said, one is because I took the state to trial. He says, and tried to prove my innocence. He says, and they found me guilty. He says, I took a plea bargain. He said, therefore, they were willing to let you out. He said, but the real reason is the fact that his crime, the court system believed or knew, was solely over money. It was a planned crime over greed. It was a crime over money. And the fact that he had no criminal history and the fact that he did go through the army hurt him because they felt that he was a very logical person with a stable mind who planned a crime and a murder for greed and for money. And because of that, they felt like he was a very dangerous person. And that was the reason he believed they would never let him go. And so we would spend several years together, Shlomo and I. He's a very, very dear person to my heart, And I ended up getting, Mid-Orange, the prison we were in, ended up getting closed down. The governor had closed the prison while we were in Mid-Orange. And I would get sent to Wallkill, and Shlomo got sent to another prison. And so I wouldn't get to see Shlomo anymore. After I came home, I decided to search for Shlomo and find him. And I found out that he went out to the hospital while he was in prison for a routine hernia operation, and he died on the table. So Shlomo died in the prison system, and he never got a chance to be free, which really hurts my heart. I understand that men, deserve to go to prison for the crimes they committed. I understand that we deserve to pay the price for crimes that we committed. I don't argue that at all. But I will argue that Shlomo did over 30 years in prison as a first-time convicted felon. And it was a tremendous amount of time. I know he took someone's life, but I know it wasn't intentional in his case. And I know that. And, I just wish he would have saw freedom again. He became a very dear part of my life. He became a man that I will never, ever forget. He did have a heart of gold, and he was tough as nails. Schlomo Tal was the toughest Jew and one of the toughest men that I ever met in my life. And so I love you, Shlomo. And I hope he rests in peace. That's my story of my friend, Schlomo Tal.